So yeah, it's not gonna be a talk about travel, but you will see it in a bit. Uh, and Nick told us just before how to get hired once you already know what to do. But I will show you how to decide and also how to leave a job that doesn't necessarily suit you. So it's not a talk about vacations. It will be a talk about how you make decisions, because you can't really avoid decisions in your life. When you do programming tasks, you care a lot about not making big errors. But when you make life decisions, the errors can become much bigger, so you really want to avoid them. And I will show you how my approach is and how I debugged my life. And remember, this is only an example. I am just one person. You have a completely different life, and you'll see in a moment, maybe you can get something out of this. I'm inviting you on a journey through 3 acts, and the first one will be about how to leave and which mental models can be actually useful. So, my name is Krzysztof Dudzik-Górnicki. I've been working in tech for over 14 years at just 2 companies. But even if I was not a job hopper, I was a role hopper, because I changed so much from junior engineer to engineering director, many roles, many teams, from Perl to Angular, from systems for the Polish government to solutions for US automotive dealers. So if my life had a metric dashboard, it would be green. Title nice, salary nice, the performance review were always nice. I worked with a great team, but deep down, something fell off. If I could look at my internal logs, I could see I experienced less joy when coming to work every morning. I became tired of the constant reorganizations that happened because the management changed every few months. And I felt I was losing agency. So I felt I was becoming not a driver, but rather a passenger in this work. So I knew I needed a structured approach to debug this situation. And let me show you a few models that can help you with this. The first one is what I call the quitting threshold. And it was something proposed by Kate Huston. Here's a QR code if you want. You don't have to take a picture because I'll be sharing the slides as well. And it's about asking yourself the same questions over and over. And these are very simple questions. Like the first example, you're not learning and you want to. The second, your job is bad for your confidence. So each of these questions you answer from 1 to 5, you get a result, and you see the trend that's following. So it's very important to follow this over time, to make it a recurring habit. For example, once a month, or maybe even once a week if the time is running very fast for you. And eventually, you cross the threshold. But what is the threshold, you may ask? I think when you do this, eventually you will see what the threshold is. But of course, it's not an algorithm that tells you exactly today is the day to file your resignation. But it's something very useful that you can use when you feel something is off for you. Then there's a very different approach, and it is about having a life vision. This is my example, and you should, if you decide to build something like this, build your own. My approach is to having 6 different areas. Here they are. And in each of these areas, I ask myself a few questions like, what do I want to achieve in this area? What do I want to have in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 50 years when I look at my life? And it might be a cliche interview question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? But when you ask yourself the same question, it can give you a lot of clarity. So here's an example, career and technology. This is something I truly believe. I want to empower people through technology to create real positive change. You might have something very different, but you should also ask yourself, is this aligned with my company? Does my company follow in the same direction? And it might also be in conflict. So you need to decide where you see yourself here. Am I going to the right direction if I stay at the company or not? And in my case, it was aligned with the first mental model that you've seen before. So it was time for me to decide I should quit my corporate job. And then, when I was starting to figure out what to do next, something happened. It was a late autumn Monday morning, maybe similar to this one. And my wife got invited to a surprise meeting and handed over job termination. Quite a few other people experienced the same on this day. So, email announcements, debates, what will happen in the company, and it was stressful. It felt like the earth was moving. You might have experienced something like this, I hope not. But for us, it was the moment when we had more clarity about the decisions that we're going to make. So we had a once-in-a-lifetime maybe opportunity to a transfer window, so to say, that allowed us to fulfill one of our dreams. And in our case, it was to travel for a few months. So it's easy to jump on the train and buy the tickets, but is it really a good approach? We decided to take a look at some more mental models. And the third one is what I call the optimization window. So in life, you have a limited amount of energy, time, and money. And usually, health over time deteriorates, but your account balance grows. And depending on the stage in your life, you have different options. Like at 40, you are still able to hike for many days. But when you're 80, and if you're really, really lucky, you can go on a cruise ship. But our goal was not to go on a cruise ship. We wanted to do something active. So where we are right now is the moment where both these curves are high enough. And we saw that it was a sweet spot for our opportunity. A lot of people thought it was risky. Our friends asked us, is this really what you want to do? But from the inside, it was boringly rational. You can't possibly imagine the number of spreadsheets that we used to decide, is this a good idea? Money burn rate, country coefficients, how long should it be? Where to start, where to end? What's the worst case scenario? What's the best case scenario? And what if no one hires us after we return? So we mapped many of these models, and we decided it works in theory. So let's deploy it to production. Okay, amazing, right? But we're not at a travel festival. And I'm going to show you how travel looks also like, except these magical moments. And I will show you a few heuristics, so simple mental models that can help you decide when life becomes more complex than in corporate Warsaw. Just for the context, this is our travel, 7 months, 9 countries, thousands of memories, thousands of decisions. We started in Brazil, ended in Colombia. It was a lot to talk about, but I want to focus on these decisions. The first problem that I saw was even before we started. And it was about losing my identity. Because here in Warsaw, I was an engineer director. But on the road, suddenly, I was just a guy with a backpack. Society likes status. Status comes from your career achievements. Also, I did celebrate all my promotions in the past. So it was a very confusing moment for me. But then I decided I need to base my identity on principles rather than job title. So yeah, I'm not an engineer director anymore, which is kind of ironic when I can see it on this screen there. I decided now I am a curious person who makes things happen. So to do this, I needed to go into learner mode. So these are notes from my daily Spanish lessons. There's an intensive language course, museums, video documentaries about the Incas. So I had to adapt and not others. So I lost my first identity, but I gained a new one. But then I needed to lose. Okay, you don't see it, but it's urgency. I had to lose my urgency. And we live all in the illusion that what is important is here and now. Here, there's a Slack notification. Read these emails. There's a failed deployment on Friday evening. And suddenly, when you're on another hemisphere, you see what is important here is completely different. So during this time, no one of the people that we met knew anything about MCP servers. And the people that we met even didn't knew anything about the Polish politics. So there was not so many reasons to look into the news. And nowhere was this as vivid as on the salt flats of Salar de Uyuni, where we were driving for 3 days with 2 other couples, and all we could see were flamingos and llamas. So this is when I decided I need a zoom-out lens in my life. So the idea is that when you find yourself running after different tasks, ask yourself the question, is this going to be important in 3 weeks, 3 months? And if the answer is no, don't give it the full attention. Because it's like log levels. You want to focus on the really critical ones and ignore the noise. Then I had to lose my control. If you're a planner like me, like I was before, you want to plan everything. You want to make sure that on this day you do this, and on the other day you do something else. But when we were in the Peruvian Andes, we went on this downhill road, and our plans broke just like my collarbone. Because on a wet, slippery road, I fell off my bike, and this was the result. So I have a little souvenir here from South America. So I could At this moment, I had two options. I could rage about the failed plans, or I could adapt at the situation. And I chose, I need to adapt. And what helped us is that we planned not so much in advance, which means we had short decision loops, which in this case turned out to be better than perfect plans. It sounds a lot like the Agile Manifesto, right? So it turns out it's equally useful in life as it is when you're building software. So travel helped with my judgment. But judgment alone doesn't help you when you're tired or overwhelmed. When I came back, the chaos was still here, only louder. It was time when I realized I need also a decision engine. Do you remember January? This is when we decided we would take a break. From January, a lot has happened. The term vibe coding was invented only in February. And since then, all these flashy headlines. Here are the 50 tools that you have to master just to stay relevant. So it is a world full of noise, full of uncertainty, and full of many choices that you had to make. And I came back, I need a job. So I knew I would need something more consistent than my own emotions to help me also on a bad day and not only on a good day. So I rolled up my sleeve and remembered I'm still an engineer and I'm a curious person who makes things happen. So I built a decision system for myself. So the idea is that this app that I built knows a lot about me. It knows my resume, it knows my job preferences and the life vision even that I had shown you before. And then I feed it with job opportunities because you need to decide where you want to apply after all and not rely on resume sending bots that would send your resume to thousands of companies. So these job opportunities are fed into an LLM process, and I get personalized advice for myself because some jobs will be very tempting for me until I realize it's only a 55% fit for me. So here's an example. This is an example machine learning engineer and who figures out where to join next. And I have 10 categories where I can decide what the attractiveness of the offer is for me, for this person. So for example, prestige, 9 out of 10. Really good. But on the other hand, salary, maybe not. We don't know yet. So the nice thing is that it's extremely personalized for me, and I can decide which of these categories have the biggest weights. Here's how it works. I feed these job opportunities into Notion. There's a sync module that adds it to my database. And then in the web UI, I can browse through it, then trigger a service that will trigger the LLM pipeline. Of course, there's cache, not just to avoid paying for the same things twice. And I tested it with a few different models to ensure also that the score stays stable. And so there's a lot of prompt engineering to be learned for this particular exercise. And the best thing is, while last year, when I was still working at a company, it would have taken at least a quarter for a team. Now, for me and my new friend Cursor, it's about 2 weeks to get the first working system. So this changed how I search. It changed how I select. It changed even how I think about the job search. Before, I could see thousands of different options, And most of them were really irrelevant for me. They triggered a fear of missing out, a lot of emotional reactions, and I was constantly afraid I could lose the best possibility. But in reality, I could really land anywhere. And after that, if I set a threshold of, let's say, 70%, now I know that there are only 8 positions to choose from, 8 positions to apply. It's backed by data, and I am much more calm, much more deliberate, and I believe this will be aligned with my life vision. So I will land eventually at the right place. So here's the whole process. First, we audited the reality to look by looking at our internal logs. Then we diagnosed what constraints we have with a few mental models. Then when this reality becomes more complex, we triaged using heuristics, and eventually we built a system to protect it. So the question is, what's my return on investment? And because it's clearly a big investment, both emotionally and financially. And my answer to myself is better decisions everywhere, not just in the career. So while a career break is completely optional, and you might have very different dilemmas than we had, having a system is mandatory. And by a system, I don't mean, of course, my app. It can be a spreadsheet. It can be a weekly discussion with your partner. Just anything that will make sure that you're taking the right decisions in a structured way. Here are 3 possible options that you have when building your career. The first one is an autopilot. And it used to work before. For example, my dad worked for his entire life at one university. But autopilot is good for stable conditions, and 2025 is not stable, and you might crash. Then the second option is pure chaos. You switch the direction from day to day, maybe from year to year. And you might have a lot of luck with this approach, but also a lot of bad luck. And the third option is what I advocate for. This is the system-driven GPS track. So I want to leave you with one question and ask yourself this single question. Which road are you on? And when was the last time that you had a look at your system logs? Thank you very much.